Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and interrupting cow, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
Well, I actually cut out my interruptions, so no one
knew that until I told them, which is how this show mostly works.
Unless I cut this part out, which I won't.
This isn't a cold open. This is more of a tepid open, I would say, because we did it after the intro.
Well, I mean, you did the intro,
so this is a tepid open.
This is it. No, it's not. It's not that. You know, we never warm up, Charlie. The water is always cold. This is always a very brisk.
It is. It's cold. It's chilly. We're doing those ice plunges that we see on Joe Rogan, because you and I watch the Joe Rogan Experience every week on loop.
Or like the polar bear plunge that they do in a lot of places.
We're those kind of people. We're also both jacked. We're both super ripped.
My name's not Jack.
Fuck. His name is Jake. I forgot. We're both jaked. We're both absolutely yoked. We've got big muscles. We go to the gym all the time, and we go to the ice polar bear plunges. So anyone who listens to this...
Unfortunately, there's not a gym on our space station.
Exactly. We take turns bench pressing each other. That's how it works. But Jake is...
I don't think we've ever done that.
Yeah, no, Jake...
Usually we just waste away until there's nothing left on either of us, because there's no food here either.
It's fine. We figure it out. We make do with in devouring these delicious pilots and TV shows that we have for the whole world to listen to. And this day, this historic day, the 1st of April, 2024, happy April Fool's Day, you big dummy.
Oh shit, I didn't even think about that. Was this all a joke?
No.
Oh my god. I feel like now he lied to me. Before we started this recording, he was telling me that he's doing a fucking not romantic comedy, but like romantic drama. I didn't even think that it's April Fool's Day. Were you messing with me, or are you actually doing a romantic drama?
My show this week is titled Starry Night, and it stars Maxwell Beckingham and Jessica Blonsky as two young scientists working at a university, and they fall in love through a series of events as Jessica enlists Maxwell to help her on a secretive project that she has been working on ever since the death of her sister. Yeah, and I am.
If this ends up being a joke, Charlie, I don't think it will be, but it's possible it will be. This episode comes out next week.
Yeah, I know.
The week after April Fool's Day.
It's not a joke, man. I just wrote
In hindsight, my pitch that just came out today, which is April Fool's Day, is not a joke. Was not a joke. And we probably should have
done something for April Fool's Day. We didn't think about it, but
what if the April Fool's Day joke is that I never released part 2?
Oh, that would be good.
Of that.
I would like that.
That would be good.
Post April Fool's Day joke.
I've already written half of it, so that's
that would
annoying,
be annoying.
But...
It's a scrap, however many pages of work you've done, but that's fine.
It's like one. Yeah. So
see, but everything you write is gold. So it's.
But where are we going here? You got two.
Maxwell Beckingham is the youngest of 3 boys and one of the inheritors of the Beck's pharmaceutical fortune. A timid man who has never lived away from the controlling hand of his father and the crushing weight of expectation. Max has dedicated himself to following in his older brother's footsteps and pursuing a career in science. Max is also currently working on his doctoral thesis at the University of Ullingston. Max may be a timid...
What a nerd.
May be a timid scion to a vast fortune, but he does have a rebellious streak that has landed him a nasty alcohol habit. Yeah.
Oh, look at you using the word scion.
It's a good word. It's a solid word.
This man went to college.
I did go to college. It's weird to say that out loud. That I did and am not currently.
Could always return.
I plan on doing it, hopefully, someday in my future. Jessica Blansky is a young scientist spurned on by her sister's memory to become I realize I wrote scientist twice in the sentence. That's not good. A young woman spurned on by her sister's memory to become a scientist. She is from a poor family with a deadbeat mother and a hardworking father. While she was never interested in science as a kid, her older sister was very scientifically minded, and she followed in her footsteps after her tragic suicide. Jess has lied, cheated, and stolen her way into the doctoral program in order to continue her sister's work. Now, when I say that, I don't want you to think that basically the characterization I'm going for with these two people is that Maxwell, right, he's a very timid guy. In high school, he went to like fancy boarding schools, right? So he was surrounded by other rich kids, you know? So he was never cool. But now he's going to the University of Ellingston, which is basically paid for, you know, the entire science wing is paid for by his family, so he's kind of the big man on campus, right? Which is a kind of a new thing for him, so he's kind of figuring it out. And Jessica, she cheated and lied and stole her way into the doctoral program, not because she wasn't intelligent enough to get into it, but because, you know, obviously your name means more at levels like this in academia, right? Your means and your name.
Yep.
It's very sad, but I don't want it to seem like I really dislike the idea of her sleeping her way to the top. She didn't do anything like that. She passed all the tests, but she was kind of one of the cool kids in high school, and now she's pursuing her career in science, and nobody really gives her a second thought, right? She's kind of fallen into, you know, the wallflower sort of situation. So I'm
when you say she cheated and lied her way to the top, like, and you know, obviously she's not sleeping her way to the top. I didn't think that originally. I was thinking like, you know, fabricated some letters of recommendation,
stuff like that.
made up some work that she didn't do.
I wouldn't say that she.
Like whole resume is like, you know, a little fabricated, little, not just exaggerated, but like a couple positions that did not.
Yeah, exactly.
Exist, really.
Or she, you know, I have in my mind, maybe we can have a flashback in which somebody, right, she and one other person are like competing for the final slot at this doctoral program at the University of Ellingston. She doesn't kill anybody. Maybe she like. He sends his acceptance letter or whatever. He receives his acceptance letter. She intercepts it at his mailbox and destroys it so that they have to send her one, right? But,
classic.
You know, that sort of thing where she's not...
Yeah, she gets waitlisted. That'd be good. And then she like, you know, gets into the office like at her high school and she finds everyone else that got accepted or is, you know, going to get accepted. And then she steals all their letters.
Right, so I don't want her to be, like, a criminal or doing anything, like, truly, like, horrible, but I want her to kind of be a social manipulator, you know? Somebody who kind of understands people a bit better than Maxwell, because he's always lived in the lap of luxury and people have always treated him like a prince. Because the Beck's Pharmaceutical Company is basically the Apple of pharmaceuticals in this universe. Right, so his father is not only like a genius who invented some like life-saving pills, right? He's also the face of the company. Pardon?
Is this like an immoral pharmaceutical company? Like they sell insulin and they charge like way more money than
I would say that.
Or is it just like...
I think it's just a normal pharmaceutical company. It came up with, like, 30 years ago, it came out with this, like, incredible pill that, like, revolutionized something. You know, it doesn't really matter what it was. Let's just say it's, you know, hair growth or weight loss or something like that. Kidney disease, right?
Stopper.
Exactly. And then Maxwell's father became the face of this company, became, like, worldwide famous. You know, Steve Jobs style. And then that will underline some of his...
Yeah,
you know,
he wears jeans and a turtleneck.
And ugly shoes. But that is going to underline some of the things that happen. We find out about Max's, like, childhood and stuff like that. So I'm gonna... Because I've written 6 pages of the outline of the season, so I'm kind of skip around a little bit. I hope that's okay with you. But both our heroes begin their first days as doctoral students, and both find themselves uncomfortable with the other students. As the students flock to Mark as a stepping stone for their future, they ignore and gossip about Jess as the weird alien girl's sister, right? So that's kind of where we find our characters. Max is the center of attention. Whenever there's a break in class, he's got 10 people surrounding him, wanting to talk to him, inviting him out for drinks, all this stuff. And I would imagine he's kind of sitting middle of the auditorium. Jess is right up front, and she's taking the most diligent notes possible, and nobody's talking to her. And maybe we can hear, Max overhear somebody gossiping about her as the weird alien girl's sister, which we'll get to later.
What do you mean the weird alien girl? Okay.
We'll get to it later, all right? Okay. So,
is she is she the cool, person that's ignoring everyone at front? She doesn't give a shit about anyone, or is she, just the nerdy girl up front?
I would say she looks like the cool person, but everyone treats her like she's the absolute nerd, because these are all nerds, right? The University of Ellingston is a very prestigious university, and so all these people are very, very smart, academic-minded people. So they're all nerds, and they kind of they don't talk to her, she doesn't talk to them, and maybe there's a bit of gossip, but she just generally keeps her head down because she's a very driven character. That's kind of one of the big things about her, is how committed she is to her goals. And so later that night, they meet as library volunteers working the night shift. The library is next to empty, so they start talking, and Max invites her to go clubbing, but she declines and stays home, obsessing over the university's president and dean, Dr. Jacobs, and working on a secret project titled Project Knock Knock. Max, obviously after his long night of clubbing, wakes up hungover and stumbles into class. All of the people he was out with are nursing headaches in the back of class as Jess is sitting up front, diligently taking notes. And as he walks past her, she hands him a copy of the notes from the class that he missed and the rota for the library, shifts that they'll be doing. And he notices that they are working together every day this week. Interesting. Jess does have a second job because, like I said, she's not a rich person, so she has to fund this university somehow. So she's taking out loans, she's working in the library, and she's working in the astronomical lab at night again, where we can see her working on Project Knock Knock on one of the astronomy computers. I don't know if astronomical is the correct term for an astronomy lab, but that's what I said. So, boom.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, it is? Oh, look at me. As she works on the project...
Well, there isn't really it is the right adjective, if that's what you mean. But I've never heard anyone call an astronomy lab an astronomical lab, but,
I feel like it could work.
Astronomical is an adjective.
Yeah. And then
I don't think there is a whole lot of astronomy labs, because it's like you've a telescope, you've observatories.
Yeah, they have the observatory, they have places where they're doing all the math and stuff, I don't really know how science works in universities, but they have a place where they keep
You could just say,
telescopes.
if you want to do astronomy, you could say she's at the school's observatory.
All right. Well, the astronomy is it's an important element of this. And so I want to have kind of a dual montage of Jessica diligently working, pouring hours and hours into this secretive project Knock Knock, and doing her jobs, taking notes, and Max is just kind of floating by in classes, not really paying that much attention, going out on the weekends, getting messed up, taking pills, going home with, random girls, that sort of thing, right?
He's enjoying college
He's
life.
enjoying his doctoral life, right? He's already been to college and graduate school. This is doctorate stuff, and he's still, partying the night away because he knows he can get away with it because everyone's going to cover for him, and this school was paid for by his family. and he's relieved by this sort of lack of stress, but he's also kind of feels caged by it. He's kind of like, I don't have to work, and I know I don't have to work. I also know that none of these people really care about me. So we kind of can see that, and that's
Why does he volunteer at the library then?
I haven't figured out why exactly.
Is he like forced to by his dad? That could be something.
Well, his dad's dead. But maybe we can have his
by his
mother or
family
his older
lawyer,
brother,
by his mom. I don't know.
Or he could just be like,
maybe they want him to have a sense of responsibility.
Yeah. Let's just say that
partying too much. They're like, you got to work at the library now.
Mm-hmm. You have to do your shifts at the library. And so the next shift they have together at the library, they start to bond over a shared love of Walt Whitman. And as they talk, Max complains about everybody he knows being his friend because of his last name, and how his family built half the school. Jess talks about her sister. And after a sexually charged goodbye, Max goes home and thinks of Jessica, while Jessica goes home and works on Project Knock Knock. The next day, Jessica texts Max out of the blue to meet up. Thinking it's a date, Max dolls himself up. He showers, he shaves, he shines, that whole thing, and they meet at a local coffee shop. Where, at this coffee shop, Jessica immediately asks him to get her access to the more highly restricted levels of the observatory. Like the places that, doctors can go, not doctoral students. And Max, frustrated, storms out and blocks her messages. Like, he's just so angry, and he's like, I thought we were having a connection, but you just want to use me like everybody else. And so he leaves. A week passes before they see each other again at the library. Their shift is awkward, to say the least, until Jess apologizes and relents, saying Max doesn't need to help her get access to the telescope. Max appreciates her apology and offers his help in whatever she's working on. Jess denies him outright, worried about his reaction, and goes home after a shift to again pour every ounce of her being into this mysterious project. In the middle of class, Jessica is nowhere to be seen when Max receives a mysterious text from her that is just a place and time. And after he arrives at this place at the correct time, she's sitting there with her laptop, and she turns it over to him and begins to explain Project Knock Knock, which is about calculating and building a machine that can send a highly concentrated signal into the depths of space in order to receive a response from some sort of alien life form. So now we know what Project Knock Knock is. And I realize I'm not splitting this up into episodes, but, it's whatever. This could be a movie also. Or like a 3-part series, that sort of thing. Max is shocked that she's continuing her sister's work after her death, and Jess explains that after her sister was ridiculed by the university, more specifically the dean and president, Miss Dr. Jacobs, for wanting to send these signals into space. So she was ridiculed by the university and her career prospects were destroyed. After that, she committed suicide. And that motivated Jess, who was in high school at the time, to pursue her career in science, to follow in her sister's footsteps, right? And then we'll have like flashbacks to Jess and her sister explaining why science is so important to her and like all this stuff. And we kind of get Jess like dismissing it because she's like 15 and her sister's like 20 something. But she doesn't care, and then her sister's gone, and it's all she can focus on. So that's why she's like focusing so heavily on Knock Knock, is because it's the only really connection she still has to her sister, who is the person she loved most in the world, because she didn't see her dad ever. He worked like 3 jobs, and her mom was gone. Who knows where. And Max, understanding what this means to her, decides to help, even if it is, a wild goose chase. He says, I'll help her, right, because this is obviously, it's a healing thing for her, and she's my friend. right? She's the only person really at university that I can say fully is my friend and not just somebody I drink with. And so during their shifts at the library, they work diligently on Project Knock Knock and become closer and closer. And after weeks of work, they calculate the perfect signal and where to send it. Max is, of course, able to talk his way into the restricted wing of the observatory and sends the signal through a, highly, science, very complicated set of machinery. He sends a signal and he sets up some sort of thing that connects to his laptop so they can see if there's a response from the signal they sent, right? To celebrate the project's finality, Max takes Jess out to dinner, and after a nice meal and a few drinks, Jess makes a remark about how easy Max's childhood must have been, right? Because he's so rich and powerful and everybody knows his name. She just kind of says it out of the blue, not really meaning any harm, obviously, just kind of talking. And Max is slightly offended, and he begins to talk about his father. And Jess thinks she knows everything about his father. He was in the news, right? He knows everything. But he's one of the richest and most famous men in the nation, but he was also a paranoid schizophrenic and a drunk who used his wealth to cover up his abusive tendencies towards his wife and children. Yeah, hell yeah. And I have an idea, but you can tell me if it's a little too, on the nose. I have the idea that maybe, his dad hit him, right? His dad hit him and his two other brothers and his mom. And then the quality of, gifts that they received would correspond with the amount of beating that they got, right? Not, one-to-one, but I'm just saying, he, gives you a black eye, you're gonna receive a really nice Christmas present, right? That sort of thing. You think that's a little too on the nose?
Oh, okay.
Because I wrote it and I was like, that might be a little too much because it's kind of just saying he uses his money to get away with being a bad person, right? That's his thing, but that's just putting it out there,
I don't think it's too on the nose.
No? All right. Well, then that's going to be the idea. Don't worry, we're getting close to the end, right? You don't have to be scared, Jake. After days and days, maybe a few weeks without response to the signal, Jess begins to get agitated, right? She's worried that it was a failure, her sister was crazy, all this work was for nothing, all this stuff. And Max, he calms her down, right? He talks to her sweetly, gently, and finally, after however many months of working together, they kiss and they embrace for the first time, and they spend the night together, right? And we're not going to be gross about it. Obviously, we'll be nice and respectful and be beautiful. The next day, Jess wakes up and she immediately regrets the decision to sleep with Max, right? And she pushes him away and talks about how he doesn't care about her, right? He doesn't care about the project. He's just some rich, spoiled brat, all this stuff. And, basically, breaks his heart. Says, the worst shit that he could hear personally. And he just storms out. He storms out of her apartment. He blocks her number. He just leaves, right? And Jess, saddened, because she pushes away the one person that really actually cares about her, goes back to the lab and sees that they did get a response. They got a response from Project Knock Knock. It's not everything. It's not like they didn't get a text message. It's just a simple response, not in Morse code, but something like beep, 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 that sort of thing. Something that could only be generated by intelligent life. And she excitedly calls Max, who sees her phone. We'll see, it'll be a thing. He'll pick up his phone and see Jess is calling him. It'll be a cute picture of them together. And he'll hang up and he'll take another shot because he's out getting fucked up with these fake ass friends that he was complaining about to her for a few months, right? And he doesn't pick up, and so she decides next best thing, she's gonna go to the dean, she's gonna go to Dr. Jacobs, and she's gonna rub his face in it, right? She's gonna just make him like see how her sister was right and she's right and he's wrong. He's an idiot, right? And after presenting the evidence to the dean, he dismisses it outright, and insults her intelligence, saying things like, "Oh, you know, when I read your last name, I thought you must be smarter than your dumbass sister," right? Like, she was an idiot and she was a lunatic and all this horrible shit. And Jess, you know, tears streaming down her face, leaves the dean's office and like goes home, and she no longer has Project Knock Knock to work on, right? She no longer has something to pour all of her like rage and sadness and depression into, so she just falls apart, right? Yeah, exactly. She just falls apart. Meanwhile, Max, whose heart's been broken, is drinking with all his fake friends, and he's getting real messed up. We're seeing like it's gonna be he's going to be doing the partying stuff, right? He's like, let's do shots, you know, that sort of thing. But we're gonna see in his eyes, he's really like.
What if it was all just interesting way to show this? What if it was all like we did some of this in first person?
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good.
First person shot.
I love a first person shot.
Like see him get drunk and like he goes to the mirror and he looks at his face. And he looks all fucked up and then he splashes water in his face. And he's back out there drinking, partying.
Back out there drinking. That would actually work really well for the climax of the scene, which is he, you know, takes another shot, then he gets in his car and he starts driving home, you know, or maybe even he's driving over to Jess's apartment because he wants to yell at her or whatever, and he gets into a horrible car accident, right? Obviously from drunk driving, and all of his family is abroad. They're in, you know, Europe and Asia and Australia and Africa, all over, you know, they're all over the place. And so there's nobody really for him to contact. And so through this bated breath and through an oxygen mask and all of the painkillers that he's been given, he says to call Jessica Blonsky, right? Just call Jessica Blonsky. Bleh. You know, that sort of thing. And so Jess, drowning her sorrow, ignores the call at first, right? And then she like hangs up, and then another phone call from the same number. She hangs up again, a third phone call from the same number. She picks up and she just starts yelling, "What the hell do you want? Who are you? You know, what do you need? I'm not gonna buy anything from you, blobbity bloobity." And then it's just a nurse, and she says, Maxwell, what's his name? He's got a long name for a reason. It's just because he's rich. Maxwell Beckingham is in a coma, and he said that you were the only emergency contact that he had in the country. And so immediately she rushes to the hospital. She's left, you know, everything she owns. She just has her wallet and her keys. She gets there and she just like holds his hand and weeps as, you know, he's in this medically induced coma, you know, from being in a car accident. And she stays there for days until she sees the TV and she turns it on, you know, off mute, and she turns it on, and Dr. Jacobs, the dean and president of the university, is there making an announcement that he has made contact with alien life of his, and it's his own personal discovery, you know, and he did it by himself, working diligently, besides all of his other, you know, responsibilities. And Jess, you know, she takes one more look at Maxwell in the coma. She kisses his forehead, and then she leaves furious and barges into the office of Dr. Jacobs. We'll do the scene where the secretary comes in and it's like, "I tried to stop her, doctor, but she just wouldn't, you know, she wouldn't listen. She demanded to see you right now." And then Dr. Jacobs will be like, "You can go away, it's fine. I'll have a talk with her." He pours himself a glass of whiskey or whatever. And he begins to talk about how she was so stupid and that this is an incredible discovery and he's going to get all the credit for her because her and her sister are nobodies. They're nothing. They might as well not have existed. And then she reveals that she was recording this conversation and the last conversation that they had. So she has recordings of both of them, right? And he, realizing that he's fucked because she now records everything, he begins to deal. Like, what do you want? He doesn't... There's literally no death in this, which is crazy. He begins to deal, and he he decides, they make a deal, right? She wants credit for Max, herself, and her sister on the public stage, right? As well as the university to fund, obviously Max has lots of money, but help fund his, recovery, right? That sort of thing. Maybe we can have a thing about how he's been cut off or something, doesn't matter. We just, I don't want her to win completely, but I do want her to come out with something, right? And she, gets partial credit with the thing, and she's really happy, and she goes back to Jess goes back to Max's hospital room, and she holds his hand, and she tells him, we did it, they're gonna know our names, we found it, you and me and my sister, all of our hard work, it wasn't for nothing, we managed it, we figured it out. And as she says that and she begins to weep uncontrollably, Max wakes up and they embrace, in the hospital bed. And our final shot, I'm thinking one of the final shots is is Jessica, the dean, and Max, who is now in a wheelchair, on the stage accepting the Nobel Prize in, do they have one in astronomy? Probably. Whatever. A Nobel Prize for figuring this out. And Jessica and Maxwell giving each other knowing looks and, holding hands as they walk away. And maybe we can do a thing into the future, right? Like a montage into the future of him going through physical therapy, and he can walk again, but he has a cane, and then they get a house together, and they get their papers published, and they have a daughter, right? And they live relatively happy, right? And that's the end of Starry Night.
So there's no April Fool's joke.
There's no April Fool's joke. It's a genuine story about love and loss and all that fun stuff.
So the April Fool's joke is that there is not an April Fool's joke.
Hey, sure. Yeah. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Pretty good joke.
I was scared the whole time. I was afraid, and you're going to be like, and the aliens shut up and killed everyone.
Yeah.
Just like some, drop ending.
Yeah. No. They live pretty happily. What'd you think of my show? What did you think of my first serious show?
What was it called again?
Starry Night.
Starry Night.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I liked it. It was very different from what we usually do.
I know. It's weird.
I was nervous and scared the whole time.
Me too.
Of what was gonna happen. But it was a nice little drama.
Yeah. I think it's fun. I think it's got its merits. I think you'd need to cast some really good actors in it, and you would have to get probably a scientist on board to help with all the technical stuff.
Oh yeah, you butchered the science.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's fine.
It.
All right, I'm okay with that.
So wait, you're saying that they sent a signal out to space and got a response in a couple days? It takes a long fucking time for that signal to actually go because it's only traveling.
I forgot about the speed of sound.
Depending on what it is, if it's a radio wave or what. But,
yeah. I butchered the science, and that's okay. I'm not a scientician. I'm a man who hosts a podcast.
When have movies actually, followed science?
That's a good point. Starry Night, everyone. Thank you all for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob? Oh, wait, we already did that part.
How am I doing? You did the intro instead of the outro.
Thank you all for listening. Oh, I did.
Well, I have been your co-host today, Jake. Charlie is a little mixed up, so he's out for the outro, as they say. So thank you for listening. Subscribe if you'd like. Listen again, maybe, if you want to. But if not, you can wait until next week, because these release every Monday. But that is goodbye from me.